It's really interesting to see how much research there is now
Mm-hmm.
on positive psychology,
Right.
like going beyond the slogans
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really rigorous studies.
absolutely.
So I'm excited to dig into this.
Yeah, for sure. One of the first things that jumped out at me when
Okay.
I was looking through all this
Hmm.
was this thing called the broaden and build theory.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yes. That's a core idea from Barbara Fredrickson's work.
Okay.
And basically what it says is that
Hmm.
positive emotions like joy, gratitude, even
Correct.
love do more than just make us feel good.
Gotcha.
They actually broaden our thinking,
Interesting.
help us see more possibilities, more
Yeah.
solutions.
So it's not just about feeling happy.
Right.
It's about those emotions actually
Yeah.
changing how we process information.
Yeah, they expand our awareness.
Okay.
It's like they give us a wider lens
Yeah.
to view the world through.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a feel-good theory.
Right.
There's real science backing this up.
Exactly. And there's research on like high-performing teams
Okay.
showing that they use at least 3 positive messages
Huh.
for every negative one.
Wow. That's a pretty
Yeah.
specific ratio.
It is.
Like 3 to 1.
Right.
Interesting.
It seems like that positive emotional tone is
Yeah.
really crucial for collaboration
Makes sense.
and problem solving.
That makes you think, how do your interactions at work
Yeah.
or even in your personal relationships measure up to that, right?
Absolutely.
Like is there room for more positivity? Interesting stuff to think about.
Yeah. It raises the question of how we can all like
Yeah.
cultivate more of that positivity
Right.
in our daily lives.
In our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
Totally. So we're seeing how a positive outlook might shape our thoughts, our behaviors.
Right.
But what about the impact on our like physical well-being?
Yeah.
A lot of these sources talk about positive thinking being linked to
Okay.
like actual changes in brain chemistry.
This is where it gets really fascinating.
Okay.
So positive thinking actually triggers
Gotcha.
the release of certain neurochemicals
Interesting.
like serotonin, which, promotes that feeling of calm and focus.
Right.
So it's not just like willpower.
Yeah.
There's an actual biological basis
Interesting.
for how positivity can affect our mood. Imagine giving your brain a spa day.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
what positive emotions do.
It's a nice visual
Right.
for your brain.
I like that. So some of the potential benefits
Yeah.
listed in these sources are pretty impressive, like fewer chronic illnesses,
Yeah.
lower risk of heart disease,
Yeah.
even improved fertility in women.
The research is still emerging,
Oh.
but there's more and more evidence that a positive outlook can contribute to a stronger immune system,
Gotcha.
better cardiovascular health,
Wow.
and even a longer lifespan.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's also a whole section here on the downside.
Yeah, so this is where it gets a bit more complex.
Right.
This whole toxic positivity thing.
Yeah.
We need to be careful not to
Mm.
throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay.
Because it's not that positive thinking itself is bad.
Right.
The problem is when we force positivity
I see.
or when we deny our negative emotions.
Okay.
That's what we're calling toxic positivity.
Right. And it's important to be clear here
Mm-hmm.
that it's not about denying
Yeah.
that those negative emotions exist.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like,
Right.
ignoring your feelings can't be good.
Exactly.
So then what exactly is toxic positivity?
Okay,
Like,
so
how is it different from
Yeah.
just trying to look on the bright side?
it's about invalidating those feelings,
Okay.
pushing them down,
Got it.
pretending everything's always fine. It's like putting a happy face sticker
Yeah,
over a wound that actually needs to heal.
right.
And that can be really harmful
I can see how.
because it keeps us from
Yeah.
processing our emotions authentically
Mm-hmm.
and developing those healthy coping skills.
Okay, so it's not about being positive.
Right.
It's about being, like,
Yeah.
inauthentic in a way that ignores
Yeah,
real struggles.
it is. And this kind of forced positivity,
Mm-hmm.
it often shows up in those
Yeah.
well-meaning, but ultimately unhelpful phrases
Like what?
like just stay positive or good vibes only.
Yeah, I've heard those.
Right.
Yeah, they sound harmless.
Like you do.
But I can see how they would
Right.
make someone feel like
Yeah.
they're not allowed to
They're-
feel their
They're
feelings.
not allowed to express
Yeah.
what they're actually feeling.
Right. It's like being told to smile
Yeah.
when you're actually hurting inside.
Exactly.
Not helpful.
Not at all.
And there are some studies
that
back up this idea that
Huge.
too much positivity, especially when it's forced
especially when it's forced
or inauthentic,
or inauthentic.
can backfire.
Yes. One study on lung cancer patients
Okay.
found that, surprisingly,
Yeah.
optimism didn't predict lower mortality rates.
Interesting.
And another study on AIDS patients
Huh.
actually found that those with really high levels of optimism
Okay.
sometimes showed signs of
Gotcha.
immune system impairment.
Wait, so you're saying, well,
Being optimistic could be bad for you.
it seems counterintuitive,
It does.
but these studies suggest that there might be a tipping point
Okay.
where excessive optimism,
Gotcha.
especially when it's forced
Yeah.
or disconnected from reality,
Right.
might actually detach us from taking the necessary actions
Do
to
it.
protect our well-being.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not optimism itself.
Right.
That's the problem.
No,
It's more about forcing it
it's about forcing it
or ignoring legitimate concerns.
and ignoring, yeah,
That could be harmful.
exactly.
Context really matters.
Absolutely. The effectiveness of positive thinking can really vary depending on the situation
Makes sense.
and the individual.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. One study focused on women with breast cancer,
Okay.
and they found that the optimistic women in the group tended to use more, like,
Okay.
adaptive coping strategies.
So, like, what does that mean? Like acceptance, humor,
Okay.
focusing on the positive.
Okay.
And these strategies led to a better quality of life
Okay.
for these women
Compared.
compared to the women who were more pessimistic,
Okay.
who often felt helpless and overwhelmed.
So in this case,
Right.
a positive outlook helped those women cope
Exactly.
with a really tough situation.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about denying the reality
Right. It wasn't about denying it.
of cancer.
Yeah.
It was about finding ways to deal with it
Exactly.
with resilience.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it's important to note
Okay.
that this doesn't mean that everybody
Yeah.
with breast cancer needs to force themselves to be positive.
Right. Right.
It's about understanding that different people cope in different ways
Totally.
and finding healthy ways
Yeah.
to manage our emotions,
Right.
whether they're positive or negative.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So it's not about suppressing those negative emotions.
That's right.
It's more about learning how to
It's about learning how to...
relate to them in a healthy way.
Exactly.
And I feel like that connects back to the idea of toxic positivity.
Yeah.
It's not that negative emotions are bad.
Right. They're not inherently bad.
It's about whether we allow ourselves
It's about whether we allow ourselves
to actually experience them
to experience them.
without judging ourselves.
Exactly. And, suppression or denial doesn't make those emotions go away. It often just amplifies them
Interesting.
and can even lead to,
Yeah.
more unhealthy coping mechanisms.
So what are some alternative ways to respond to someone who's struggling
Yeah.
that are more validating and supportive besides just saying, just stay positive?
Exactly.
Like, what can we say instead?
Instead of dismissing their feelings,
Yeah.
try phrases that acknowledge their experience
Okay.
without trying to force a positive spin on it.
So, for example.
You could say, that sounds really tough.
Okay.
I'm so sorry you're going through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, it's okay to feel however you're feeling right now.
That's good.
Yeah?
Those feel
Yeah.
more genuine,
Hey, Bill?
empathetic. Like you're actually trying to support the person
Yeah.
rather than just trying to fix them.
Exactly.
To minimize.
And sometimes just listening without judgment
Right.
can be the most powerful form of support.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm all about connecting the dots.
I know you are.
I have to ask,
Okay.
how does this whole discussion about positive thinking, toxic positivity, relate to the concept of risk?
Oh, interesting.
Because one of these sources talks about neglected risks.
Right.
Like things we might be downplaying or ignoring.
This is where we get into optimism bias.
Okay.
Which is this tendency we all have to overestimate the likelihood of good things happening to us and underestimate the likelihood of bad things happening.
So like we're wearing rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
It's like kind of filter out
the
potential threats.
Yeah, it's like we're filtering out the threats.
So it's not that we're intentionally ignoring risks.
No, not intentionally.
It's just that our brains are like
break.
kind of hardwired to be
You're kind of hardwired.
a little bit Overly optimistic.
To be a bit overly optimistic.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
And this source specifically mentions that experts see lifestyle risks as underemphasized.
Right.
What's the connection there?
Well, if we're overly optimistic about our health,
okay,
we might be less likely to take steps to prevent,
gotcha,
chronic diseases,
right,
or to actually seek medical attention.
Okay.
When we need it.
We're just like, oh, it won't happen to me.
It won't happen to me.
Even if our lifestyle choices suggest
yeah.
otherwise.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a wake-up call.
It is.
I think a lot of us probably do that.
Yeah. It's a very human tendency.
Downplay those risks.
To downplay those risks.
Especially when it comes to our own health.
Yeah.
I know I should eat more vegetables.
Right.
But I'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But maybe not the best approach.
Maybe not.
It's not about becoming a pessimist.
Right.
It's about developing a more realistic outlook.
Okay.
That acknowledges both the positive and the negative.
So we've really unpacked the complexity of positive thinking. It's not just a simple on-off switch.
Definitely not.
There are nuances.
There are.
It's about finding that balance.
Absolutely.
Between acknowledging the good and the bad.
The good and the bad.
In life.
Yes.
But how do we actually do that?
Right.
How do we find that sweet spot of realistic optimism?
How do we do that?
Without falling into the trap of toxic positivity or neglecting those potential risks.
Right.
Luckily, we've got a lot of sources here.
We do.
That offer some strategies.
Yeah, they offer a whole toolkit of strategies.
Perfect.
I'm happy to share.
Because it's one thing to talk about the theory.
Right.
I know our listeners want to know
absolutely
what they can actually do.
Yeah, those actionable steps.
So that's what we'll do.
Perfect.
After a quick word from our sponsors.
Sounds good.
All right, so we've talked about the science, the downsides, all that. Let's get practical.
Yeah, let's get practical.
What are some actual techniques
for
cultivating that balanced and authentically positive outlook?
Right, because I think that's what people really want. Like, what can they actually do?
Exactly.
And these sources actually offer a lot of different strategies.
Okay, cool.
One that comes up a lot is gratitude journaling.
Okay, I gotta say.
I know.
I'm a little skeptical of gratitude journals.
Yeah.
Does just writing down what you're thankful for actually make a difference?
Well, it might surprise you.
Okay.
But the act of actually reflecting on and writing down those things you're grateful for can shift your focus from what's lacking to what you already have.
Okay.
And that can foster a sense of contentment and appreciation.
So it's like training your brain.
Yeah, it's like training your brain
to focus on the good.
To notice the good stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of always dwelling on the negative.
So it's not just about feeling good.
Right.
There's like an actual cognitive shift.
There's a cognitive shift.
It happens.
And it's not just about feeling good either.
Okay.
Studies show that practicing gratitude can actually have tangible benefits, like improve sleep, reduce stress, and even stronger relationships.
All right. You've convinced me.
Yeah.
I might have to dust off my old journal.
Give it a try.
What else is there?
Another strategy I think is essential, especially in the context of toxic positivity, is challenging negative self-talk.
Oh, man.
We all have that inner critic.
I know.
That can be really harsh sometimes.
Yeah, mine's pretty brutal.
We don't have to let it run the show.
Easier said than done, right?
Well, it's about becoming aware of those negative thought patterns.
Okay.
And then consciously choosing to reframe them.
So how do we actually challenge those thoughts?
It's like becoming a thought detective.
Okay.
You're noticing those thoughts, observing them.
Yeah.
And then you're deciding, are they actually helpful?
Right.
Are they accurate?
It's like creating that space between the thought and our reaction to it.
It's not just blindly accepting those negative narratives.
It's like, it's the truth.
Yeah. As truth.
So we have to ask ourselves.
We have to ask ourselves.
Is this thought really true?
Is it true? Is there another way to look at this?
What evidence do I have?
What evidence is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so easy to just get caught up in those negative thought spirals.
Right.
And not even stop to think.
And not even question.
If they're actually valid.
If they're valid.
Challenging those thoughts takes practice.
It does. It takes practice, but it's like building a muscle.
Okay.
The more we do it, the better we get at it.
At catching those thoughts.
Yeah, at catching those thoughts.
Before they spiral out of control.
Exactly.
So it's not about pretending they don't exist.
Right.
It's about learning how to manage them.
It's about managing them
more effectively. More effectively, yeah.
There are specific techniques for that, right?
There are, like thought replacement.
Okay, what's that?
So you identify the negative thought, and then you consciously replace it with a more positive or neutral one.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you're about to give a presentation. Okay, yeah.
And you start thinking, I'm going to mess this up.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
Everyone's going to think I'm incompetent.
Classic.
Right. But instead of letting those thoughts take over, you could replace them with thoughts like, I've prepared well for this.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best. Or even just, I'm going to focus on connecting with the audience.
So shifting the narrative.
Yeah, shifting the narrative.
From fear and self-doubt to
to confidence.
To capability. Even if you don't totally believe it.
Exactly. Even if you don't fully believe it at first.
Make it till you make it.
Well, the act of repeatedly choosing those positive thoughts can actually start to rewire your brain.
Wow. So it can actually make a real difference.
Over time.
Over time.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
It reminds me of affirmations.
Yeah, like affirmations.
Repeating positive statements.
Right.
To shift your mindset.
Okay, so speaking of rewiring the brain.
Yes.
I'm curious about the role of mindfulness.
Well, mindfulness is a great tool.
Yeah.
For developing a more balanced and realistic perspective.
But how does it actually connect?
So it's about paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
Which helps us detach from those negative thought spirals.
Gotcha.
And just observe our thoughts and feelings as they arise.
So it's like watching clouds drift by.
Yes, exactly. You see them.
You acknowledge them.
You acknowledge
them. But you don't get
you don't get caught up.
Yeah, caught up in them.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Mindfulness can help us recognize that thoughts are just thoughts.
They're not necessarily facts.
That's really important.
It is. It can be very empowering.
Because it allows us to choose how we respond.
Exactly.
Rather than just letting them.
Yeah, rather than letting them
control us.
Dictate our emotions and behaviors.
Right. That seems really helpful for dealing with those
those automatic negative thoughts.
Automatic negative thoughts we were talking about.
It's like taking back control.
Yeah, taking back control.
Of the narrative.
And mindfulness practices can help with that.
Yes. Things like meditation.
Okay.
Or even just taking a few deep breaths.
Right.
Can help regulate our nervous system.
And
reduce stress.
Okay.
Which can further enhance our ability to think more positively.
So we've got gratitude journaling, challenging negative self-talk.
Yes.
Thought replacement.
Thought replacement.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
That's a pretty good toolkit.
It is.
Are there any other strategies?
One that I think is really important,
all right,
especially with this whole toxic positivity thing, is building resilience.
Oh, resilience. Okay.
Yeah, that ability to bounce back from adversity.
Yeah, to cope with challenges.
Cope with challenges.
Without falling apart.
Without falling apart.
Because life throws curveballs.
It does. It throws curveballs.
We all know that.
And resilience helps us weather those storms.
So it's like having this strong inner core.
Yeah, like a strong inner core.
That can withstand
the
ups and downs.
Yeah, the ups and downs of life.
And some people are naturally...
Right, some people are.
More resilient than others.
More resilient, but
okay,
it's a skill you can develop.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's like a muscle.
Okay.
You can strengthen it with practice.
So how do we actually build that resilience?
One key is focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
So when you face a challenge, instead of getting stuck in that why me mode.
Why me?
Ask yourself,
okay,
what steps can I take to address this?
Okay.
What are my options?
So it's about shifting from...
It's about shifting...
Feeling helpless.
Yeah, from helpless...
Feeling empowered.
To empowered.
To actually take action.
Yeah, taking action.
Instead of just worrying.
Instead of just worrying.
And doing nothing.
Exactly.
And another important part of resilience...
Yes.
Is seeking support.
Seeking support.
Don't be afraid to reach out.
Reach out to friends, family, a therapist.
When you're struggling.
When you're struggling.
Yeah.
Talking it through.
Talking it through can make a huge difference.
It really can.
We don't have to go through tough times alone.
Absolutely not.
And another strategy that's often overlooked is just prioritizing positivity.
In our daily lives.
In your daily choices.
Okay, so like, what does that mean?
What books are you reading?
Okay.
What music are you listening to?
Right.
Who are you spending time with?
Yeah.
All these choices can either contribute to or detract from a positive outlook.
So it's about being intentional.
It's about being intentional.
About curating our own...
It's like curating your own positivity playlist.
Yeah, I like that.
A life.
A positivity playlist.
Yeah.
For life. And it doesn't have to be anything big or complicated.
Okay.
It could be as simple as taking a walk in nature.
Okay.
Listening to your favorite song.
Right.
Calling a friend who makes you laugh.
I like it.
Savoring a cup of coffee in peace.
Those little moments.
Those little moments.
Of joy.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are the things that matter most.
You really are.
Okay. And then finally.
Okay.
What about setting realistic expectations?
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Especially for realistic optimism.
How so?
It doesn't mean giving up on your dreams.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that setbacks and challenges.
Yeah, those are inevitable.
They are a part of life.
Right.
It's okay to not be positive all the time.
So it's about embracing the full spectrum.
Embracing it all.
Of human experience.
The good and the bad.
The good and the bad.
Without expecting perfection.
Nobody's positive 24/7.
Nobody is.
That's just not realistic.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of freeing.
It is freeing.
To just accept that.
It is. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off.
It allows us to be more human.
It does.
With all our flaws.
It's not about being perfect.
It's not about being perfect, no.
It's about progress.
It's about progress.
It's about the journey.
Life is a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here.
We have.
The science, toxic positivity.
Yeah.
All these great strategies.
Lots of strategies.
But I think it's important to bring it back to our listener.
Yeah.
What does all this mean for them?
Right. So I think the biggest takeaway is positive thinking isn't a magic bullet.
Okay.
It's not about denying negative emotions or pretending everything is perfect.
It's about finding that balance.
Finding that sweet spot.
Between acknowledging the good and the bad.
Acknowledging it all.
And empowering ourselves.
And feeling empowered.
To take action.
To take action.
Without getting bogged down.
Right, without getting bogged down.
By negativity or toxic positivity.
Exactly.
So it's not about being an overly cheerful robot.
Not a robot, no.
It's about being more
resilient.
Resilient.
More empowered.
Empowered.
More authentic version of yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
And this is a journey, not a destination.
It is a journey, not a destination.
We're all works in progress.
We are.
That's a good reminder.
It is.
It's about making small changes.
Small, consistent changes.
Over time.
To shift our mindset.
Yeah, to shift our mindset.
To a more
balanced, positive outlook.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Progress, not perfection.
Man, this has been so eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much research there is on the power of positive thinking.
Right.
And it's interesting to see how it's evolving.
It's evolving.
Beyond just those simple slogans.
Beyond the
think happy thoughts.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's becoming more
it's becoming more nuanced.
I mean,
more scientifically grounded.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like we're finally acknowledging that life isn't always rainbows and butterflies.
Not always.
There are storms too.
There are.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
We don't have to pretend
exactly
the negative doesn't exist.
We're embracing a more holistic view.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about navigating all of it.
It is. It's about navigating the whole spectrum.
It's a whole spectrum.
Of human experience.
With more awareness.
With more awareness.
And resilience.
And resilience, exactly.
Well, this has given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad to hear that.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools.
You do. You have a whole toolkit.
A toolkit, yeah.
Yeah.
For dealing with
life.
The ups and downs of life.
The ups and downs, yeah.
And remember, these tools, they're practices.
They are practices.
Not quick fixes.
Not quick fixes.
Gratitude journaling. Challenging negative thoughts.
Yes.
Mindfulness. Building resilience. All of that takes time.
It does.
It takes effort. And practice. It's like learning.
Yeah, it's like learning.
It's a new language.
An instrument.
Or an instrument. Exactly.
You're not going to be fluent overnight.
It takes time.
But the rewards
are worth it. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up,
yes,
I always like to leave our listener.
I know you do.
With something to think about.
Okay.
A question to spark further exploration.
I like it.
So after all this,
yeah,
what's one final thought you want to leave them with?
If we think of positive thinking as a skill that we can develop, like we were saying, like playing an instrument.
Yeah. Learning a language.
Right.
What's one small step you can take today to start shifting your mindset?
Towards that.
Yeah, towards that more balanced, authentically positive outlook.
It could be starting a gratitude journal.
It could be that.
Challenging a negative thought.
Challenging a thought, yeah.
Or just choosing to prioritize.
We're just choosing to prioritize.
Something positive in your day.
Exactly.
It's a great question.
Because remember, even tiny action can create ripples of change.
They really can.
So, what will your first step be?
I love that. That's a great question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah.
And on that note, that brings us to the end of this deep dive on positive thinking.
It's been a pleasure.
It really has. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.